Long ago in the sprawling Persian Empire, one of the most powerful kingdoms in history, a young Jewish woman would rise from obscurity to royalty, playing a pivotal role in saving her people. This empire, ruled by King Xerxes, stretched from India to Kush, a realm of magnificent wealth, diverse cultures, and elaborate politics. The palace of Susa was a marvel of engineering and wealth, a fortress of towering columns, glittering mosaics, and banquet halls so vast they could host thousands. This was the heart of the Persian Empire, where King Xerxes, renowned for his ambition and opulence, ruled over 127 provinces. In the third year of his reign, Xerxes held a feast to display his greatness to nobles, governors, and generals. The celebration was not merely for feasting, it was a demonstration of power. The banquet hall was adorned with linen curtains of blue and white, silver rods, and golden goblets, each one unique. Servants moved briskly, attending to every guest's desires, while musicians played soothing melodies. For 7 days, wine flowed like rivers, laughter echoed through the corridors, and the empire's mightiest were entertained in splendor. King Xerxes boasting, "Let no man leave this banquet without tasting the fullness of Persia's wealth. Drink, eat, and remember, your king provides it all." As the celebrations reached their climax, King Xerxes, emboldened by wine, sought to showcase not just his wealth, but also the beauty of his queen, Vashti. He sent messengers to summon her from her own banquet, where she entertained the women of the palace. Messenger to Queen Vashti. "Her Majesty is summoned by the king to appear before his guests in her royal crown. He wishes to display your beauty to all." But Vashti, a woman of grace and dignity, refused. She would not parade herself as an object for the amusement of intoxicated men. Her defiance sent shockwaves through the palace.
"Tell the king that I decline his summons. A queen's honor must remain intact, even in the face of a king's demand."
When the messengers returned with Vashti's response, a tense silence fell over the banquet hall. Xerxes' face darkened with anger, his pride wounded in front of his guests. The royal advisors, sensing the gravity of the moment, seized the opportunity to act. "My king, Vashti's disobedience cannot go unpunished. If the women of Persia hear of this, they will lose respect for their husbands. Issue a decree so that all may know. Every man is master of his household." Though Xerxes cared for Vashti, his pride and anger overruled his affection. He agreed to the decree, banishing Vashti from her role as queen. The edict was proclaimed across the land, ensuring no woman would dare challenge her husband's authority. Yet as the days turned into weeks, a growing emptiness gnawed at the king's heart. The hallways of the palace felt colder, quieter, without Vashti's presence. His advisors, keen to lift his spirits, suggested a bold new plan, a search for a new queen to bring joy back to the court. The announcement of the king's search for a queen spread swiftly through the empire, reaching even the most distant villages. Messengers carried proclamations, and young women of beauty and stature were brought to Susa. The king desired not only beauty, but someone worthy of the title queen. In the bustling Jewish quarter of Susa lived a young woman named Hadassah, known to the Persians as Esther. Orphaned as a child, she was lovingly raised by her cousin Mordecai. Their home was humble, yet filled with warmth and faith. Mordecai, a man of wisdom and integrity, guided Esther with gentle care. "Esther, you are kind and humble, qualities that shine brighter than jewel. But remember, the king's court is a place of schemes and secrecy. Do not reveal that you are Jewish."
"What if they do not choose me, cousin? What if I am not enough?"
"If God is with you, who can stand against you? Go, my daughter, trust in his plan." Esther joined the ranks of young women brought to the palace, each undergoing a year-long regimen of beauty treatments and preparation. Despite the competition, Esther's grace and humility set her apart. When her time came to stand before Xerxes, Esther entered the royal chamber with quiet confidence. The king, surrounded by lavish decorations and wealth, rose from his throne, captivated by her presence. "Who are you that you bring both beauty and peace into my court?" Moved by her purity and charm, Xerxes placed the royal crown upon her head, proclaiming her queen. Esther, a simple Jewish girl, had risen to the highest position in Persia, though her heart remained grounded in her faith. While Esther settled into her role as queen, her cousin Mordecai remained steadfast in his daily routine. A faithful Jew, he continued to work diligently and maintained a presence near the palace gates, where he listened to the murmurs of palace life and watched the comings and goings of officials. One day Mordecai's loyalty to the king would shine through. While sitting by the gates, he overheard two guards conspiring in hushed tones. Mordecai, hearing the sinister plot, wasted no time. He sent a message to Esther revealing the plot. Esther informed the king, giving credit to Mordecai, and the guards were apprehended. Though the incident was recorded in the royal chronicles, Mordecai received no immediate reward for his actions. But amidst the quiet heroism of Mordecai, a dark figure was rising in the empire's court. Haman, a descendant of the Amalekites, had been elevated by King Xerxes to a position of immense power. Haman's pride grew unchecked, and with it, his demand for unwavering respect. A new decree ordered all to bow before him as a symbol of submission. While others obeyed, Mordecai stood firm, refusing to bow to any man but his God. "Who is this man who defies me?" "It is Mordecai, my lord, a Jew who follows his own laws and refuses to honor yours," the guard said. Haman's fury boiled into hatred, not only for Mordecai but for all Jews. Learning of their faith and customs, he sought their annihilation. Haman told the king, "O king, there is a certain people scattered among your provinces who keep themselves apart, following their own laws. They dishonor your rule and threaten the unity of the empire. If it pleases the king, let a decree be issued to destroy them. I will provide 10,000 talents of silver to your treasury for this task." "Do as you wish, Haman. Here is my ring to seal the decree." Haman's decree was proclaimed throughout the empire, setting a day for the annihilation of all Jews. In every city, the edict brought shock and despair, as God's people prepared for what seemed an inevitable doom. When Mordecai heard the decree, he tore his clothes, put on sackcloth, and wept in the streets. His cry echoed through Susa, a haunting lament for the Jewish people. Esther, safely within the palace walls, received word of Mordecai's actions and sent a servant to inquire about his distress. "Your cousin Mordecai mourns in the streets, dressed in sackcloth and ashes," the messenger said to Queen Esther.
Take him garments so he may enter the palace gates.
But Mordecai refused the garments, instead sending a message that shook Esther to her core. The messenger, reading Mordecai's words to the queen, "Do you not know, Esther, that you too are in danger? Haman's decree threatens all Jews, and you cannot escape simply because you live in the palace, and you must go to the king and plead for mercy. Who knows? Perhaps you have been brought to your royal position for such a time as this." Esther's heart pounded as fear gripped her. To approach the king without being summoned was punishable by death. Even as queen, she was not exempt from the law.
Am I truly strong enough to do this? What if I fail? What if the king turns me away?
But Mordecai's words echoed in her heart. After 3 days of fasting and prayer, Esther resolved to act.
Gather the Jews in Susa to fast and pray for me. I will approach the king, though it is against the law, and if I perish, I perish.
On the 3rd day of fasting, Esther adorned herself in royal robes and stood in the inner court of the palace. The massive hall stretched before her, lined with towering columns and filled with courtiers. At the far end sat King Xerxes on his golden throne, surrounded by advisors and guard. Her heart raced as she stepped forward, her every movement deliberate yet heavy with apprehension. The king turned his gaze toward Esther and, to her great relief, extended his golden scepter, granting her permission to approach. "What is it, Queen Esther? What is your request? Even up to half my kingdom it shall be yours." The king said,
If it pleases the king, may you and Haman attend a banquet I have prepared for you.
The king agreed, intrigued by Esther's request. At the banquet, Xerxes again inquired of her request, but Esther, in her wisdom, delayed her petition. Instead, she invited the king and Haman to a second banquet the following day. Haman left the banquet in high spirits, believing himself favored by both the king and queen. Yet even his triumph could not soothe his hatred for Mordecai, whom he still refused to bow to him. That night, Haman set in motion plans to build gallows specifically for Mordecai. As the night fell over Susa, the grand palace was silent, but King Xerxes found no rest. Tossing and turning, his mind was troubled. Unable to sleep, he summoned a servant to bring the royal chronicles to his chambers. The scrolls, filled with the records of his reign, were read aloud. Among the accounts, the story of Mordecai surfaced, the man who had uncovered the plot to assassinate the king. "Stop! What was done to honor this man Mordecai for his loyalty?" the king asked. The servant hesitantly replied, "Nothing, my lord." No reward was given. This revelation stirred the king. At dawn, he called for his advisors to discuss a suitable honor. Just then, Haman arrived at the palace, eager to seek the king's approval for Mordecai's execution. The two men's paths intersected in a moment of divine irony. "Haman, what should be done for the man the king delights to honor?" Haman, blinded by his pride, assumed the king meant him. His heart swelled with arrogance as he spoke. Haman replied, "Let him be dressed in royal robes the king has worn. Place him on a horse the king has ridden, with a royal crest on its head. Let the city's nobles parade him through the streets, proclaiming, 'This is what is done for the man the king delights to honor.'" "Excellent. Go at once, as do all you have said, for Mordecai the Jew who sits at the king's gate." Haman's face turned ashen, his triumph unraveling before him. Yet he had no choice but to obey. Haman, humiliated, led Mordecai through the streets of Susa, proclaiming the very words he had imagined for himself. The crowd looked on in astonishment as the tables were turned. By the time Haman returned home, his humiliation was complete. But before he could fully comprehend his downfall, a summons came for him to attend Queen Esther's second banquet. In the banquet hall, Esther sat with the king and Haman. The aroma of rich spices filled the room, and the golden goblets shimmered under the torchlight. Yet beneath the surface of this opulent setting, tension brewed. "Queen Esther, speak your request. What is your petition? Even up to half the kingdom it shall be granted."
If I have found favor in your sight, O king, and if it pleases you, grant me my life and spare my people, for I and my people have been sold to be destroyed, killed and annihilated.
The king, startled and enraged, leaned forward. "Who is he? Where is the man who has dared to do such a thing?"
The adversary and enemy is this vile Haman.
Haman's face drained of color as the king rose in fury. Unable to control his rage, the king stormed out into the garden, leaving Haman to beg for his life. "Queen Esther, please, I meant no harm. Do not let this be my end." But his desperation only sealed his fate. As he threw himself at Esther's couch, the king returned, interpreting the act as an insult. "Will he even molest the queen while she is with me in the house?" The king's guards immediately seized Haman. "Your Majesty, a gallows stands near Haman's house, 50 cubits high. He intended it for Mordecai." "Then hang him on it." Thus Haman met his end, and the gallows he had built for another became the instrument of his own destruction. With Haman's death, his estate was given to Queen Esther, and Mordecai was elevated to a position of power in the kingdom. Yet the danger to the Jews remained, as the king's edict could not be revoked. In her wisdom, Esther approached the king once more.
If it pleases the king, let another decree be issued allowing the Jews to defend themselves against their enemies.
The king agreed, granting the Jews the right to protect their lives. Messengers rode swiftly across the provinces carrying the new edict. When the appointed day came, the Jews stood united. Empowered by the king's decree and strengthened by their faith, they overcame their enemies and secured their survival. Thus, through courage and faith, Queen Esther and Mordecai changed the course of history. Esther, a humble orphan, became the instrument of God's providence, saving her people and leaving a legacy that would inspire generations to come. Yet, in the midst of this vast and glittering world, an orphaned girl named Esther would become the unlikely heroine of a story that has inspired generations. Hers is a tale of courage, humility, and unwavering faith in God's providence.
Do not forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more Bible stories. God bless you.